The D.C. snipers' shootings held the country in the grip of terror.
The Washington Beltway was turned into a bloodbath. Anybody could be a victim. Anybody.
Overnight, the Montgomery County area sees a 25% increase in their homicide rate. Within October 2002, in total, 17 people were shot and killed, another 10 were injured by the Beltway snipers.
911 emergency.
Hi, I'm at Shoppers Warehouse on Randolph Road, and some man just on the parking lot. There was a loud noise. Not sure if he was shot or not. A man has been killed in front of me.
In the autumn of 2002, a ruthless killer stalked the suburbs of Washington, D.C.
He only needed a split second, and he could take them out.
People were murdered at random.
White people, black people, young, old, children.
What's going on there?
This guy's lawnmower did something, man, and chopped him up. He's bleeding real bad. He's down and out.
Okay, is this at, what's the address there? Is that the supposedly shooting on Rockville Pike?
Yes, I thought it was a shooting. We heard a loud bang, sound like a gunshot. That's why I said what I did.
Okay, 11411 Rockville Pike.
And then the killer vanished without a trace.
How do you find a ghost?
Millions lived in fear.
I felt like the water was over my head.
The sniper's high-powered rifles sent shockwaves across the country.
People like this exist in our world.
481.
I want to need a unit with crime scene. We got a major crime scene there. What is it? They did a shot.
One of the largest manhunts in American history spread from coast to coast. There were many false leads.
Fire an ambulance.
Yes, I need the ambulance and police at Leisure World Plaza at the end by the post office. The girl just shot herself, sitting on the bench there. Hurry.
But eventually the murderer became careless, and the police were able to apprehend a pair of deranged killers.
Police knew each victim was shot from 100 to 200 yards away, but they didn't know where the shooter was located. The FBI used television and film animation software to build models of the crime scenes to determine where the shooter was positioned. And since the shooter got away cleanly, some believed that two people were involved, a spotter and a shooter.
My theory was there was a driver with him, that's how he was getting away.
It could be a critical clue in the sniper shootings. The gunman reportedly has left a message for police. We get more on that in a live report from WTOP's Christy King.
It's a tarot card, the death card. Written on it, "Dear policeman, I am God." The tarot card was found by police where it's believed the sniper waited in the woods to shoot the 13-year-old boy in Bowie.
In a note that the killers left for the police, they referenced a crime that they had committed in Montgomery, Alabama, on their way to get to the DC area. Once they were linking themselves, in the note, they linked themselves to this. The police were able to go back to what happened in Montgomery, Alabama, see what evidence was collected, and they found that there was this magazine that was left at the scene of the crime, and that magazine had the thumbprint of Lee Boyd Malvo, and very quickly they were able to tie Lee Boyd Malvo to John Allen Muhammad. And that was the absolute game changer here.
course of 3 weeks, the sniper has claimed 10 lives and wreaked havoc in the D.C. metro area. Investigators have no eyewitnesses and no suspects. All they have so far are the bullets taken from the victims. And those bullets will first have to answer a key question. Are investigators hunting a single killer or a team of killers working together? At the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Lab in Rockville, Maryland,
Fire in the hole!
Chief Firearms Examiner Walter Dandridge sets out to answer that question. He'll use the bullets taken from the victims during the autopsy.
There was probably 4 or 5 bullets, but there were a number of fragments, that fragmented from these bullets.
Bullets from some high-powered rifles are specially designed to break apart in the body. Upon impact, the bullets fragment, and each fragment creates its own wound track, inflicting more damage on the victim. And making forensic ballistics more challenging, a team of pathologists led by Richard Fowler was charged with finding every bit of ballistics evidence during the autopsies.
The challenges specifically with these high-velocity bullet wounds are that the bullets are very fragmented. We call it a lead snowstorm, and literally that's what it looks like. You end up with, imagine snowflakes just dropping you, multiple little pieces all over the place, so it looks like snow. So it becomes a real labor to track down as many of those fragments as you possibly can.
Once the pathologists collect all the bullet fragments, Dandridge can get to work. Dandridge has a tool called the comparison microscope.
The comparison microscope is really 2 microscopes coupled together by a single eyepiece. You can see 2 objects at the same time, 1 on each stage.
Dandridge looks for the land and groove markings on the bullets and the smaller striae. He compares the bullets from each shooting.
I saw that the microscopic markings from one bullet to the next, the stria was lining up, and so I was fairly confident that these were fired from the same firearm.
Police now know that 1 weapon and probably 1 sniper was involved in all the shootings. They've also identified the sniper's weapon, a Bushmaster rifle. Now they just have to take it out of his hands for good.
The Firearms and Toolmark Unit conducts many different types of examinations. They do mechanical function checks on firearms to see if they're working properly. This includes test firing of firearms for bullet and cartridge case specimens for possible comparison with evidence. Gunpowder pattern testing, also known as proximity testing, to determine the distance a firearm was from a victim. Microscopic comparison of fired bullets and cartridge cases to determine if they were fired by a specific firearm. Microscopic comparison of tools, like screwdrivers, wire cutters, or punches, to tool marks or physical matches left at a crime scene. And restoration of obscured serial numbers on firearms and other objects using specialized acids.
The U.S. utilizes IBIS through the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. IBIS has become the standardized way to examine projectiles and cartridges. What is IBIS, though? IBIS is a single platform computer identification system that correlates and matches both fired bullets and discharged cartridge case evidence. It's much harder to determine the caliber of fragmented bullets, however it's not impossible. Fired bullets are examined in order to determine the general rifling characteristics of the firearm that discharged it. Using the caliber, number of lands and grooves, direction of twist, and width of the land and grooves, the search for the weapon will be focused on specific models and manufacturers. In order to analyze bullet evidence, a comparison microscope must be used. In this process, a bullet is rotated in the hopes of finding a matching pattern of striations. Normally, 3 identical striation patterns must be discovered before 2 specimens can be said to match.